Hi, my name's Maddie, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the creative and technical behind By the Flare and the power of collaboration in indie filmmaking. I'm going to be speaking specifically about the creative and technical, and this includes the cinematography, editing, audio, and graphical elements of Behind the Flare. To begin, I'm an Irish artist based in the UK, having studied both my BA and MA in Fine Art at Hereford College of Arts. Initially, my practice stemmed from a fascination with new media technology and the desire to reimagine painterly practice into digital film and immersive experiences. My experience with multiple digital mediums for creating artwork has included AI, 360 filming, 3D modeling, games engine, including Unreal Engine and Unity, as well as a variety of other software and tools. I have since continued to work in both the educational and private sector, researching and teaching a variety of workflows in these areas. As a fine artist, my practice originated with painting and drawing, but with exposure to a new digital toolset, I started working with Photoshop, Premiere Pro, Blender, Unity, and Unreal to make different artworks. My final piece in my final year of uni won the MASH Cinema Award, as kindly awarded to me by Nick Brown, and led to a commission with Channel 4's Random Arts programme through Rural Media. My specialism is now in camera visual effects, LED, and extended reality for film, TV, and broadcast, and this has led to further work with other creatives as a consultant, art institutions, and companies, and I'm always keen for more. So, walking through the kind of roots of my practice, as you can see here, this is a VR piece that I made for my end of year show, which was developed in Unity. And this led on to my MA in Fine Art, where I spoke a lot about media in culture and kind of went back to the basics, and then created some interactive installations which were all about kind of questioning, the truth that is laid before us in media. My software specialism as an educator has been rooted in everything that I learned in order to make my own art, but is not limited to anything that's on the screen. This is just things that I use in my day-to-day practice as a practitioner now and as a professional that works in the immersive industries. These are some funded projects and talks that I've done previously and include quite a lot of the institutions that have guided me through in my creative practice as a young person through living in Hereford and beyond, and to whom I'm very grateful. I won't name names here, but there's some incredible people that I wouldn't be here without today. So if you know who you are, and I sincerely hope you do, I wouldn't have been able to achieve anything without the care and attention that was there. So thank you very much. Some projects I'm working on at the moment are some wider UK-wide initiatives, and this includes the Maxar European-funded project in which I was a demonstrator, and also the CoStar project, which is funding for the immersive screen industries and AI and so on and so forth across the UK. Technical treatment. So what is technical treatment? In the context of film, technical can also refer to the methods and tools filmmakers use to create and manipulate images, sound, and narrative structure. In the way that I've manipulated the following set of work, then this explains my involvement with the project as a whole. Producing, cinematography, editing, audio, and graphical elements of Behind the Flare were kind of in my remit, but not as it was limited to. The first thing that you need to start with in any creative project is project management. And when Alex and I first met, there was a discussion about the ideas of how do we get the film made. And in order to condense this and make it digestible and translatable for someone else to understand, I started a series of different organizing files basically inside Google Drive, as you can see here. For anyone who actually really wants to make a start with anything in their life and make it nice and clean, Google Drive is free software in which you get 15 gigabytes of storage. It's attached to your Gmail. Most people have them. It allows everything to be placed in a singular centralized space, and if anyone for any reason is unable to attend to the project, it means that everything is because it's centralized, is able to be shared. And this assists with so many different things along your creative practice. Definitely recommend it. And it means that if anything needs to be updated, can be updated in real time. I can be on a call with Alex and I'm like, you need to fix this, this, and this. Because we're on call, we can see where it is. I don't even need to be in the room. I'm a big love of remote working, and unfortunately, because I work in London, unfortunately, I have to do this all the time. So my first engagement with the project was looking at the project management and saying, this is how we need to align things, but actually putting things into motion and getting, overview and insight into things from multiple different areas. It's hard, but centralizing everything in your project, the first thing that you should ever do. We were talking about the concept of location, and Alex had some ideas and had shown me some of the concepts in his storyboard, which was using a lot of forestry, walking through the woods, kind of having, wide shots, loads of space. We're very fortunate to live in a very beautiful landscape, and something for me that I've threaded through my work continuously over the years is that use of landscape in my practice. Coming from a painter's perspective, that connection to the land, for me personally, in the sense of folklore and also in the sense of narrative beauty, is something that I'm exceptionally proud of and really happy to live here. And it's the reason I've remained here for so long. I like to come back to that in any digital work that I do. I started recommending some of these areas to him, and some of the concepts that were presented to us was this idea of Mother Witch and Crone, and my favorite place in the whole world in that I discovered when I moved here is Kilpack Church, just for its heritage, alongside a few other places. But the Brington Loop is something that, it kept me very sane in the lockdown, but also had other links to my life in such that I had joined a Morris dancing group. But also, a lot of these areas have very significant links to witchcraft and folklore, and the beautiful work that is Nick Brown and MASH Cinema's Tales of Ellen Murray Leather takes a lot of pride in digitizing and immortalizing some of these beautiful spots. And I kind of had that in play whenever we chose some of the locations in order to shoot. Although not directly related to the Tales of Ellen Murray Leather, there was so much folklore in my life that had been there that I really wanted to thread that into the film in my own way. Coming back to the concept of summoning the mitochondrial Eve, trying to relate to a place in early paganism, but also in early Christianity, something that I really thought about in some of these locations, and linking them up with the collective Blackthorn Border Morris, also known as Blackthorn Ritualistic Folk, that kind of relationship and bringing together the folklore elements, but also knowing that these areas had, very rich history in that area is something that I tried to bring to the project when it came to thinking of ideas and concepts of where to go. When we came to actually choosing the kind of creative direction, Alex had shown me some images that really sprung out to me, which were of these kind of Chinese, Korean, and Japanese kind of tales of revenge, and a lot of these kind of striking red and black images, which very much informed the means by which that we would film the final piece, and also the fact that we were using a bright red flare, prevalent in films such as The Thing and such like, and that kind of very much informed the technical aspect of the way that we were going to film. But it also created a very stark limitation because the camera that I was using does not perform well in low light, and so this led to a a treatment specifically for the construction of shitty rigs. Shitty rigs being a colloquial term in the industry of things that shouldn't work, but if it's there to get the shot done, then you use them. My camera is a Canon EOS C, or a C100 Mark II, which is a semi-professional cinema camera. It shoots in full wide HD, but it's not the best camera to perform in low lighting, although it takes some beautiful shots and can take some very creative things. So we kind of had to roll with what we could get. But in order to retain this kind of deep, deep sense of red, and not lose too much detail. We had to start to think about how to make our own gels because gels are expensive. So I had the quick and swift idea to take some Ziploc bags and color them in, which actually worked a dream. And also did some blue treatment to kind of give that polarization of color to give a bit of texture to some of the areas that we were shooting in. And Alex then went out and purchased some LEDs and we pieced the whole things together. And sometimes like strapping your camera to a tree to get the shot doesn't sound like the most optimal thing to do, but this is the kind of things that happen whenever you're making indie films. Like if you don't have the budget, you might only have like a crappy little stand that only goes to a certain amount of height, and then suddenly you've got to think about how you do things. So taking risk with equipment is one thing that maybe you don't want to do too often, but it was fun and it was nice, and everybody was on board. We had 3 people manning cameras, we had actors, and just walking through and doing the things that they needed to do, and all in the name of fun, because this collaboration was more important than the equipment. And I do believe that that kind of sense of making the work happen is what the role of a producer really is. And someone to crack the whip, like, no one really appreciates how hard you need someone to just be like, you need to go and do this. They say that payment in kind comes in multiple ways, but, access to resources, access to equipment, having someone with some level of technical know-how is willing to listen, someone who can tell you, maybe that's not going to work, but maybe why don't we try this? There's so much in filmmaking that is kind of gone unseen about, how these things happen, and it's a lot of smoke and mirrors, but you don't just have a single or 2 single people kind of leading on these things. You have full teams of people in their own specialism who are there to get it over the line. And it's something that I have been very fortunate to have the opportunity to do. Something that I had a lot of access to whenever I was a young person and came to Hereford, which I'd never had before, is something that's very important to me and something that I do want to continue with in future, which we'll get onto later. Here you can see is the kind of proof in the pudding, where you could see me holding some of the shitty rig. um, and the actual effect that it had on the flare, but also in the tree line. That kind of dramatization of the trees and making things very theatrical. One of my favorite films when I was growing up was the Edgar Allan Poe's Masque of the Red Death, starring Vincent Price. Which if you've never seen, please go and watch it. It's just incredible. And Vincent Price is a theatrical actor and always was. Then henceforth his Hammer House of Horror style of acting was kind of, classic for that time. And the same with Christopher Lee. Those kind of influences for me as a young person into my goth stuff, it carried through. And I took that with that kind of vision in mind, and I researched this quite heavily to kind of get it looking right. Even if it wasn't captured correctly, and with every potential correct, like political correctness as far as it can go in film, the process of filming for me was something that I really enjoyed. And working out movement, so moving up this pathway was quite kind of dodgy because we're going up a hill, and also we have someone carrying like a very explosive device in front of us. The camera was getting covered in dust, but the actual um the ethereal nature of some of the shots, you just can't really forgo them. And so that kind of cinematography aspect of it was really important, but then taking it into an editing context and pulling it apart and kind of replacing it so that which shot is speaking to which movement is patching where. And there's a whole like catalog of things that you can do with editing that, I don't think you can ever fully know how they work. It's like music, and that kind of sense of movement and how to keep it going. Something that, you can start with as a young person and maybe not even finalize until your late years. It's something that I then took into doing little bits of VFX with, and covering up the lights that we'd used the to give that kind of sense of texture on the trees. That was a blue light, which we've put a filter on. You can see here there's multiple different adjustment layers and color mats, which add to the depth of color. And slowly but surely throughout the film, you start with like a muted red, and you end up with quite a vibrant one, still in the vein of those Korean kind of Japanese Chinese horrors, where that kind of red is that sense of doom that is growing consistently throughout the film, as indicated by Alex himself. Although it's almost there, I would say there's still a little bit to do on it. The audio is something that I kind of really needed an input on because I can do audio editing, but soundscaping and stuff is something that I do believe is an art form of its own. And in film you have each person working in their specialism. My specialism in virtual production is to know that I am a generalist and how to pipe those things together. If there was any kind of future direction for myself, then I would say that if we were going to move forward to make more films, then we employ those separate persons in their areas, and make sure that their skill set is revered in the way that it needs to be. And on the note of next steps, cul-de-sac is something that I had mentioned while we were on set, and which for me is that coming together of community. And once you hit past 24 in the industry, you kind of stop getting funding, stop getting access to making ideas and films. And meeting Alex at that point of his life, I did believe that this was something I could help with, and I really wanted to give back in a way that was meaningful to me, which kind of closed that circle of wanting to take the opportunity that was given and understand how to use that experience to fuel other things for other people. And so opening the floor, there is some ideas and concepts that I would like to move forward with in opening the floor for Cul-de-sac Film Club to become a community incentive. Just to kind of work to develop these skills in project management, in look development, in technical treatment, in film treatment, to take a concept to a reality. And so this for me is a very important aspect of my life in Herefordshire, because I would never have actually ended up doing what I was doing without that. And so in conclusion, if anyone does have any concepts, any scripts, any ideas, and you would like to work together to try and make that happen, I'm an open door, and I'm here as a consultant and as a technical guide in order to help that happen. I'm in no way an expert, but what I know is that giving back is something that is very important to me. And I am happy to work as a producer to kind of help that work. And if you are interested, please let me know on my email at mmcvfineart@gmail.com. And we can work together to put things in the forward momentum as a creative community, as it should be. Finally, a massive thanks to Alex for having me on board. And for the HFan artists, please commit to this incentive, because it's been great to actually get back involved with making work, and I really appreciate that as well. And to Meadow Arts for funding this talk today. Sorry that I couldn't be there in person, but I hope to hear from you soon.